Welcome to Futureproofing U's Insider VIP session. And I'm Andrea Kates, and in a moment, I'll introduce the other members of the team who will be part of today's showcase. We're really excited to gather a group of really strong business leaders and opinion leaders to experience the premiere of a course that we've designed to address the most critical issues facing companies and teams today in the volatile business environment that we're in. And the question that we set out to answer with a new point of departure is really, how can our companies integrate innovation, emerging technologies, cross-industry insights and commitment to growth to deliver what we call a bigger, bolder, better, and simpler future? And we call it future-proofing. So thanks for being here. And to express our appreciation, we'll be sending you an online version of the materials that we'll be describing, including tools, the original materials from Futureproofing U. And also we'll send you our customer zeitgeist study, which is some research that we've just done on what's happening in B2B, B2C, human to human customers. So thank you so much. We really appreciate this and appreciate the fact that you're here to help us really make this a fantastic offering starting in Q1 of 2021. So our objective for this hour is to introduce you to Futureproofing U's approach, give you a taste of the 4-module course that we're launching in 2021. And also during this hour, toward the end and during the middle, we'll be letting you experience a little bit of what it's like to be in the course. And at the end, we'll have a conversation around some feedback. And at the end of the hour, we'll also have what we're calling after hours. So at the top of the hour, we'll have a full stop. And then 30 minutes after that, we'll begin a little bit more of a debrief where we'll be really chatting with each other and letting our hair down and speak informally about some ideas. And so if you haven't had a chance yet, please, in the chat, we'd like you to introduce yourself, your name, your company, your location, and what's vexing you, what's keeping you up at night in terms of the innovation challenges. So over the next hour, we'll give you a sampling of the course and give you the tools. And what you'll see is that we'll start with the why. We'll talk about our end-to-end operating system, and it reflects work that Sean Moffitt and I have done to create a book called Futureproofing NEXT, The Future Beyond Innovation. And we also will talk about innovation at scale. And we're joined today with by a colleague who's very critical to the content of what we'll be doing in Futureproofing U. Chenyang Xu will introduce everyone a little bit in a minute. We'll introduce tools. We'll give you a quick dive into one of the topics, which is technology, and it's kind of a universal. And then finally, we'll give you an insider preview. We'll talk about, how this is going to roll out, and we'll ask for feedback. So once again, thank you. So now I'd like to introduce the team. I'm Andrea Kates, and this all began as an outgrowth of a book that Sean Moffitt and I wrote as part of our practice, Futureproofing NEXT. The consulting practice is based on being able to figure out, for the 2020s, what's different about innovation and why have we been missing some of the promise that we want to deliver on. And Sean Moffitt is co-founder of Futureproofing NEXT and is a former Fortune 500 global innovation executive, CMO, and a 4-time startup founder. And he's pioneered digital innovation as the author of Wikibrands and has led more than 50 future-proofing studies and projects. And as I said, I'm Andrea Kates, and I'm a former CEO of a Silicon Valley SaaS company, software as a service, and have been advisor to global companies, including Fujitsu and Ford and Sumi Trust and Hyatt and JLL. And thank you, because some of you are in the group today. So it's great to see some familiar people and to meet the new ones. And I've also worked in digital transformation and fintech and technology and corporate transformation. And we're joined by Chenyang Xu, PhD, our collaborator on Futureproofing U. And Chenyang has led corporate innovation for global companies, including Siemens, is the co-founder of Silicon Valley Future Academy, serves as advisor to global companies with a focus on healthcare and advanced technologies. And he holds more than 40 international patents and has led innovations that have resulted in over $1 billion of new revenue. And together we lead the Futureproofing U course that we're discussing that begins Q1 2021. So let's face it, corporations face a major problem, which is the delivery on innovation. And we urgently need innovation that drives new initiatives across the finish line. It's not enough to have the new ideas. In the last decade, what we had was the opportunity to come up with new ideas, have lots of ways of developing ideas. But the problem is that only 20% of CEOs really feel ready to address the big changes. And so what we did is we set out to change that and bring our customer experience from more than 200 teams, insights from thousands of additional innovation initiatives, and custom research to Mint what we're calling an end-to-end operating system for innovation. And what we learned is that there are a couple of problems. Like number one, our tools are that we were taught even 10 years ago are kind of a retrofit, things that we were taught that you'll hear about in just a minute. They're not appropriate for the speed of our market. The second is that we can't keep up. So how do we reskill all the time and figure out what is it we should pay attention to? The culture of execution has to be so strong in our companies, and yet sometimes it goes like oil and water with the corporate culture that's required to really bring innovation to its full potential. And then finally, there really hasn't been somebody that stopped, took a deep breath and said, okay, new point of departure. What is it for today? And of course, we're also in a post-COVID time that is really important for us to focus on. And so to address that, we've got 4 foundational elements, and we'll talk about that of our piece. See, learn, decide, commit. And what I'd like to do now is introduce Sean to talk a little bit about the why.
Thanks, Andrea. I appreciate it. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Why do we want all of you here today? Like, why are we even doing this? Maybe is perhaps a question. I think that why question maybe comes down to 3 different things. Why now? Why us? And why even? And I think if 2020 has taught us anything about change and how constraints loosen really, really quickly, the world has never needed innovators more than they have now. There is going to be a sea change of wealth and impact of different companies in the world. The people that innovate better are going to be the winners. Why us? Collectively, the 3 of us in the webcast today have spent more than 60 years of our life trying to tumble through the questions of, how do companies, and particularly larger companies, do change well? And I think myself and Andrea and Chenyang more recently have spent the last 3 years really trying to tumble into that question. And we think we've surfaced a new argument, a new point of departure, and a lot of different assets that can help change agents inside companies. The why even, and if we're being honest with ourselves, innovation has had a really interesting 50-year ride in terms of its profile within academic circles, but within practitioner circles, it's failed us. If I ask somebody on a board or some type of corporate executive, how good is your innovation function versus all the other functions in your company? They'll probably tell you averagely about 18th out of 23. That's not good enough. And so myself, Andrea, Chenyang, we've decided to look at that with open lenses and say, what is wrong with how we're applying innovation at a corporate level? How do we build a better cultural mindset for it? How do we have a better appetite for speed? And so people just don't say, let's imitate the startup. And how do we have a much wider lens in terms of how we do change? Oftentimes we get tribalized in terms of, what should be the solution. Really, we should be taking a much larger view in terms of what the portfolio of change might look like. And so as much as it's despair from a pandemic standpoint and the fact that we're sub-optimizing in terms of corporate innovation, we really want to provide hope for you. And I think there's no better format than training to actually give people confidence and competence for a better tomorrow. These are what we call the 4 nasties. These are probably, if you're any kind of innovator within a corporation, or even a scale up, this is what hurts. From a front end standpoint, at the most senior levels of your company, chances are your board, your executive did not get into their seats of position because they were great innovators. They were probably well accomplished at other things. And there is a duty of responsibility that we have to make sure that if they're not great at innovating and learning about new technologies, that we certainly inform them of that and make sure that we can be change agents influencing them. From a middle standpoint, certainly one of the drivers of Futureproofing U, and this thing that you'll continue to hear over and over, see, learn, decide, commit, is most companies don't have an operating system for innovation. They probably have one for financial reporting. They probably have one for, you know, how they do procurement, but they don't have one for innovation. They're making it up as they go along. We're going to talk about that today. And then probably the least explored area of innovation, certainly it's explored within marketing circles and startup circles, is how do companies scale and grow their innovation? It's really not well documented, and certainly from a results standpoint, it's one of the gaps that we certainly thought we should address. And then the final thing is there is a widening bridge between the aspiration of what CEOs have and the reality of what they're able to achieve. And we really know CEOs don't wake up in the morning saying to themselves, we want to be an average company. They really don't. But unfortunately, there is a chasm between what they're trying to achieve and what their visions say. Chenyang, I might turn it over to you for a minute. You've worked with literally hundreds of companies at the most senior of levels. How does this reflect on your experience?
Hi, Sean. These four nasties are serious challenge for all corporate leaders. And if not tackled head on, it will tank a business. So let me add a story to the first nasty. So more than 10 years ago, when I was the new head of Siemens Technology business, so I had a business trip to Munich, and where I actually met a division CEO who was the main sponsor of our center. I asked him what his expectation of the center. He said, look at the campus we're walking. This campus used to be the headquarters of Siemens Communications. It's a 100-year-old division. At its peak, it's contributing 1/3 of the revenue and half of the EBIT. And because it missed the internet voice over IP, you know, that whole shift for the telecom, it's disrupted, and now it's divested outside the Siemens. So what I want from you is very simple. You know, I want you to look outside our core strategic roadmap and looking at what are new emerging technology market trends that could actually tank us, and then act on that. And so that's really a most memorable story I had, you know, in my tenure of heading that tech venture for Siemens. And by the way, the CEO and his division went on in the 10 years after became the most top performing division of Siemens. So in today's world, these nasties are even more greater challenge. And this is why, you know, I think if all leaders has to heed these nasties and take and tackle these very seriously. Back to you, Sean.
Thanks, Chenyang. And I love the fact that we're bringing a practitioner focus, not only to the hour that we're spending with you today, but also to the training that we're going to deliver. We will say that we're standing on the shoulders of some giants here. We've looked at more than 50 change schools, and it just hasn't been lean or an agile and, you know, design thinking. There are a ton of different ones out there. You know, we like a lot of them. Some of them are flawed, we recognize, but we like a lot of them. We know what's right about them. We know what's wrong about them. But the one thing that is true about nearly every single one of these is they were never developed as an end-to-end operating system to get innovators to next. They really weren't. And so as much as we've looked and learned from a number of these different schools, we really have focused on how do we create a full back to front operating system. And here we are. And I know we've fallen in love with our own term perhaps, but you know, this is truly a new point of departure. It's a new point of departure because it's needed. It's a new point of departure because as much as these previous schools of innovation have probably been right for their times, I'll go back to it once again. They have not been built with a full-on, you're a change agent inside a corporation. How do you go about your business on a day-to-day and try to get to next? And so times change, so should your thinking, right? And so, you know, we'll talk for the next 5 or 10 minutes about what does this operating system look like. And you'll hear this heuristic over and over and over again. You'll probably, if this is the For Dummies presentation, you'll hear see, learn, decide, commit over and over. And really what the 4 things that we try to solve with that heuristic is the 4 things mentioned on this slide, but truly is back to front innovation. And so it's probably taking myself and Andrea at least 10 years to get to a very simple heuristic. Sometimes, you know, to use the Mark Twain saying, you know, I would have written a shorter note if I had more time. So we've spent a lot of time on this. These are the 4 steps: see, learn, decide, commit. Each one of them has 2 different components to it. We'll dive a little bit deeper into it. You know, this is probably one of those slides that for half of you, you'll go, oh my Lord, there's a lot of rich stuff here. And for half of you, you'll go, too much. Where is the forest for the trees? And I'll back up, see, learn, decide, commit. Having said that, we've built a ton of tools to support this process. So even if you don't need help across the full front to back end innovation, there's something within both our book, our venture, and this training program that says, wow, I really could be helped by having that tool or canvas. And Andrea, over to you.
So one of the things we want to do, this is a set of modules that's designed not for us to tell you a lot of things, but for us to give you a taste of some really important skills and concepts, and then for you to apply them. And so the first thing we'd like you to do is high tech, take out a piece of paper and a pen. Little higher tech, you can write in the chat, and you're welcome to do either. So let's look at this first, maybe at 10,000 feet, the way that we drill down on this. So imagine that you have an idea that your company, where it is today, could either, maybe there's a nagging feeling that your company should be doing more to advance something that's trend related. You see a trend out there, you feel like you should be somehow capitalizing on it or turning it, commercializing it, but you're really not sure where to get started. Maybe you're in a situation where, you really have to figure out of many options, like you have this portfolio of options, but you really don't know either how to validate them or how to choose them. Maybe your idea is that you have early evidence that there is something that you should do in collaboration. Maybe there's another industry that's doing something and you feel like you should capitalize on that. So what I'd like you to do in the next slide is very simply write down or put a star or put in the chat where you personally see the most potential impact for your company right now. You're just doing an informal pulse check. So let's think about it. If you were seeing the most potential for you starting Monday, right? Is it in seeing things more clearly, seeing around the corners? Is it in mastering something? You've been using buzzwords for a long time, like AI or blockchain, and you really need to get your arms around it. Is it the why, the deciding, the expansion and the choice of where to start, how to get the biggest bang for the buck, where to place your bets? Or is it the leadership, the ability to scale something, the ability to fund things, the ability to get everyone on the same page? So we'd love for you to put that in the chat. And once again, this is just a flavor of the kinds of things that we do. We have online tools as well as this back of the envelope tools for us to take a diagnostic of where we are now and where we'd like to be. And then we connect the dots with you on a sort of custom basis. So each of you gets to where you would like to be at the end of the modules.
I have an immense amount of respect for a lot of people that have joined us today. In my estimation, people that get innovation right and successful inside larger companies, truly, it's the major leagues. As much as I love startups, sometimes all they need to focus on is that one thing. Certainly corporate innovation, scale-up innovation is much more nuanced. And so with our course, we're talking about innovation at scale. We're talking about it within larger environments where some of the sophisticated choices that you may need to make are crucial. And so last year, we actually performed a research study called the Corporate Innovation Playbook. We asked the 50 questions that we always wanted answered about innovation. And within this course and with some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, you'll see it embedded in terms of some of the things that you'll see. Everybody knows Goldilocks and the Three Bears story. Porridge is just hot or just cold. No, it needs to be just right. And I think as much as there are competing schools of innovation, we think we've built something here that is just right for the innovator in 2020. We see innovation having 1 to 5 year purview. Anything longer than that, and you never get to that horizon 3. Certainly we did some research recently that said even breakthrough innovation, the average time to breakthrough innovation right now for change agents out there is 18 months. So it's no longer 25 years. And I think we've seen that through digitization. We recognize we're providing you a set of tools here, but at the end of the day, you need to customize them. We believe there's an even blend between great intuition and great data. We also think that, innovators, change agents, maybe not you today, but certainly other people, need to be stretched and feel confident, more confident about where they can take their companies and really look at something that will live in the minds of customers. And then finally, we make no compromises here. We need to be a front end and back end and middle end solution for change agents. And so Chenyang, why now? Why do we need future proofing now? I think you have some rationale to support that.
Yeah, let's be frank here. These changes are not new, but what's new today is the velocity, the volume, and the variety of these changes are faster and bigger and more diverse than ever before. And we see if you look at the computing, right? The machine learning computing has not doubled every 18 months, but actually doubled every 3.5 months since 2012. And you're looking at the movie downloading, used to take over a day in 20, 20 years ago. Today it's 3.6 seconds. And also you can look, more than a decade ago, Google and Apple, came into the mobile phone industry. And what happened, right? Disrupted the whole industry and took the leadership. And the same thing happened 7 years ago when, two technology company, one is Alibaba, one is Tencent, and went into the financial industry. And then they basically with a new mobile payment technology. And in the last 7 years now, they are net controlling 90% of the entire $17 trillion mobile payment, right? It is because these faster and bigger and more diverse changes. That's why we need future proofing now.
Thanks, Chenyang. As a companion piece to both our venture and also our training, we've also developed something called 88 triggers. And I don't know who said it, but good in questions inform, great questions transform. And sometimes more than having the right answers, it's having a really good question with the right group of people to solve. And so we've built these 88 triggers around our see, learn, decide, commit structure. It's almost, I'm a poker player, so there's like 22 in each suit. And we thought we'd tumble through at least 2 of them today. And Chenyang, I'm going to ask you to be my foil. We asked you to look at 88 different versions of these. And you, amongst the 88, decided to take 2 of them. They're actually in kind of the back half of our suite of cards. My hope is we can get some thoughts in terms of the 2 that you choose. One was our trigger 48. And we co-create with customers to discover new future possibilities. What's your thought on this one?
Yeah, it's interesting. I see quite a number of participants pick the decide and commit on the back end as the challenge. Indeed, that's what I have found out. One example, the reason I picked the customer, I do think customer is the key for driving innovation, not just in the sales process, but early on as well. For example, I have been leading an innovation project within Siemens years ago in the healthcare domain, where we actually are working on a whole new way of navigating inside the heart and doing the surgery. But there was a lot of doubt, not only within the companies, but also within the community, right? They think this is a science fiction, will take a long time to mature. And this is where, when we had a prototype, we were able to show the possibility, but we need the customer, the KOL. So we actually equipped with not one, but multiple KOL physicians. And with our latest results, even though it's still in the prototype phase, and then allow them to go to the Congress, like the conference, to speak to the world about their vision, how they use it, and then to really get this message out. And that really created not only, I would say, a confidence for the company top management, this is a product everybody wants, but also condition the community of physicians. See, actually the future is coming to us now, not 5 years, 10 years down the road. And so that really allowed us to go from pass to the decide and also the commit. Eventually, we involve the customers, these KOLs, throughout the whole innovation journey until the product's launch. And it was a multi-billion-dollar product hit in the end. And then the market actually adopted that faster than ever. In 2 years, it became a standard of care. So that's something we haven't ever seen about that before. And that shows the power of involving customers early in the decision process.
Love the outside in perspective there. Certainly we live in an age of there's a solution somewhere in the world, please go find it, right? You also picked something from our decide suite of cards as well. This is more on the impact side. And so talk to us about how current customers could play a role in bringing the idea, any idea to scale.
Yeah, the last one was really seeking new customers and bringing to help the decision. This is really using the existing customers. One example I have was when I was heading Siemens technology business, we incubate a lot of new technology business. One of the area, was 6-7 years ago is really along the line of using augmented reality glasses to help the next generation service workers, right? So Siemens has a lot of service workers, or customers have a lot. And but at the time, it was Google Glass. Actually, you remember, was hyped up and eventually failed to gain market traction. So there was, quite some doubts there. And again, in that cases, we were able to do a customer workshop and with existing customer to really find out about their pain, and then really co-create the definition of the prototype, how we can use these augmented reality glasses to help them in terms of their services. And so we actually engage also in this cases quite a bit, actually about 10 of them. And in the end, they actually show us not only they needed it yesterday. So actually bring the urgency, and we get to decide. And then we tested everything with them, for this. And we ended up have a cluster of new programs and product and services grown out of that. And so, in fact, the core team also, Siemens, decided to help customer on the outside Siemens actually spin off a company actually called DeepHow. And now it's also commercializing for even greater work. So this is one of the most successful program I have incubated, my team. And I do think, by using customers, even in the B2B setting, can be tremendously helpful and actually help you to create a pool, to create the impact, to go to the corporate constraints and politics and challenges.
I love the real marketplace examples. And just to pivot to the training that we're talking about, every one of these 88 cards has a real marketplace example where you can sink your teeth into and go, wow, somebody else in the world really did that. Now, you mentioned the word scale. So you've opened the Pandora's box here, Chenyang. Talk to me about this thing called escape velocity, because I think me and you both agree that scale is such an undercovered area of the innovation bent for the corporate suite.
Yeah, I like the word escape velocity because it really helped to visualize the challenge, right, of innovation. It's not about start. It's really about how do you escape and really go to scale. And I think until now, there's often a wrong belief in the corporate board or even senior leaders that by putting a lot of money, hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars on new initiative, and put a lot of people there, and you can achieve corporate scale. I have seen more failures with that approach, than successes. And so this is far from the truth. So in practice, actually, scaling up corporate initiative is not only just applying Lean Startup, one proof of concept here, one there. It's really about doing all these challenge. We have to focus and deliver on scale from the get-go, right? And we need to build this project from ground up, and not alone, but run parallel, and also building up the needed innovation infrastructure and resources, people, and also bring customer in, as I said earlier, and to really help to pull this to the scale and to reach escape velocity. And so this is very important. Everything has to be done in tandem, and this obviously require a new breed of leaders to really run that. And future-proofing helps to shift the corporate leaders to tackle these very nasty but very critical issue here.
Compelling insight there. I know we've looked at, we're going to pivot now in terms of, what is really inside as the elements of our course. We're going to give you a small little flavor. We'll probably give you an example of each one of these. But it's really from 3 or 4 years of a lot of intense research, a lot of intense experience. And let it be known too that we've tested these out with real life clients. 200 clients have actually used a lot of the stuff that we're showing you. It's been used by about 13,000 teams around the world as well. And so various elements have been not only future-proofed, but also corporate-proofed. And I know this is our book. This is our Hammurabi code, if you will. This is what it looks like a little bit. There's certainly a visual learning element of the design that we're going to bring into our course as well. And we've tried to take the 244 pages that is this book and build it into a course. And so you're catching 1 hour flavor of it today, and we're going to have different interactive moments with you shortly. But you're getting a real highlights package in terms of what we've put in there and how we're applying it. Andrea?
And so what we'd like to do now is take the pulse. Once again, every few minutes, we want to make sure that we hear from you, because that's what this session is about. And so we're going to launch a poll. And if people all know the Zoom poll, the first question is, in your company or team, what is the biggest internal barrier to the innovation? And so we'll give you a few minutes to weigh in here. And hoping everyone can see the poll. So the options are insufficient innovation talent, lack of time. Yeah, you only have to pick one. Someone just asked. Yeah, it could be all the above, but no, this is a pick one. Shortage of ambition and stretch, lack of funding, lack of vision, rapidly changing technology, integration changes, levels of bureaucracy, limited appetite for risk. They're probably all of the above. So pick the one that's most vexing and vote now, and then we'll close the poll in about 10 more seconds. I'll do a countdown. Everybody's saying we need more than one. We'll have to note that for when we start the course. So I'm going to end the poll now. And I, for some reason, didn't get all the results. So what I'm going to do, Sean, can you see the results?
Well, I'm seeing lacking vision, strategic alignment as being really high. And I've also got lack of time and resources as high, and high levels of bureaucracy. There might have been one that faded off the screen, but yeah, those are the three.
Thank you. So what that means is, and it's interesting because when you talked earlier in the chat about decide commit, that's really consistent, right? That it used to be 10 years ago, or actually maybe it was 10 years ago when Sean and I were on the road, and when Chenyang was doing the work internally within corporations as well. The biggest problem was, we had open innovation, we had design thinking, we had all kinds of ways of ideating, because the problem then was, how do we get new ideas? But that's not our problem. And that's why we're trying to solve for the holistic approach. And so what that means is we're in good company, whatever it is that we believe. And once again, in the modules, we'll get into it more deeply. And that's the type of diagnostic that we'll be using to hone in and focus on what people are really wanting to focus on, to customize the content a bit. But what's important is that when you look at the issues, when you look at the research for what people are saying now who are leading corporate innovation, number one is insufficient innovation talent. Number two is lack of time, resources, and staff. Number 3, 4, and 5 is, shortage of ambition, lack of funding, and vision, strategic alignment. They're not insignificant. But if you look at the top two, it's people. It's really people like us, and being able to get people on board with this new approach that's really critical.
I thought I'd also expose some things that we can really go down the rabbit hole in terms of looking at some of the tools and some of the canvases, and in this case, some of the frameworks that we've developed. This one we actually did a webcast on this week that was one of our more enthusiastically adopted ones, as evidence of some of the frameworks. And we have about 15 of them in our course that provides new to the world thinking in terms of how to see the world. So in some cases, it's our future readiness audit. In some cases, it is business models and what the leading 52 business models of tomorrow are. In this case, we exposed a different way to codify innovation. We think the codification and classification systems out there for innovation are really insufficient to speak to the complexity that exists currently within an innovator's toolbox. And so these were the 5 different levels and the 24 different types of innovation that are the type of thing that you'll see in our course. We've also got different audits and worksheets where this is our version of Myers-Briggs, I guess, if you will, for innovators. Like, there tends to be a dominant strain within the corporate innovation suite where you're either see, learn, decide, commit dominant, and you're probably more either market or company/product more aware. And so we decided to actually look at that through different lenses. And this is just one of a number of probably around 20 different examples where we have short little audits, worksheets, and things that you can take back to your companies. A lot of different books I've read, a lot of different courses I've read, they may have really good stuff and they'll hook into 1, 2, maybe 3 different canvases. We've put the kitchen sink into our work. We've got 18 different canvases that function as the backbone behind our book and now this course. We also have 36 different tools that, whether it's trying to get to more creativity in terms of your ideas up front, or we expose 21 different future-proofing leadership skills that are much different than the leadership skills certainly I was taught when I certainly came into the workplace. We'll cover both front, middle, and back end innovation through a variety of different tools.
And what
Andrew,
I was saying earlier
presentation.
is, there was some questioning in the chat, which is that, what do we mean by an innovation talent? And I put in a comment that we heard from Lego last week. I was in Denmark last week, and someone from Lego was talking about, it used to be that only one type of person was considered an innovator. And it was what they call the creatives from Milan, and we're not saying anything negative about Milan, but, people who are artistic, people who had outside the box thinking, that was the only type of innovation profile that people viewed. And so what we think is that that gives a disservice. So first of all, we acknowledge that whether it's process innovation, ecosystem innovation, research and development innovation, some of these are, quote, boring, but they can be hugely valuable in terms of developing innovation at scale. And as Chenyang said, escape velocity. Commercialization, just because you have patents doesn't mean you know how to bring something to market. Best practices in terms of other industries. And so we contend and we teach the ways to tap into the talent in multiple dimensions, at least 30, if not more, to really make sure that there's process innovation, business model innovation, leadership alignment, scaling, and escape velocity. We also believe that, sometimes we ask people to pivot, and having run many teams, and some of the people in the group today know we've done a lot of lean startup and a lot of innovation teams, as Sean said, probably 200 companies trying to get this work to fruition. And one of the things that we said maybe 5 years ago is, oh, it's not working, for whatever reason, the validation isn't coming clear. And so you need to pivot. But how do you pivot? If your customer experience is not good, how do you pivot? And so we believe that what we focus on in these modules is the ability to take best practices from other industries. For instance, payments, future of finance. We have tremendous background in terms of what people are doing in one field that you can borrow. And we believe, for instance, in retail, everyone's going to be in the payments industry pretty soon, any transaction. We also look at some universals like the future of work. And if people haven't acknowledged that the post-COVID world is completely different, whether it's virtual work or other issues, then we've been asleep at the wheel. And so part of what we do is we make it very contemporary, and we allow you not to say, please pivot, but we say, how to pivot, where you can look, and we spin the wheel so that everyone can really master some new opportunities to bring your core idea to either a new business model, a new ecosystem play, or something from another industry. And so that brings us to this idea of what we'll be doing now. For now, we're going from the talk about the modules to actually giving you a little amuse-bouche, a little tasting menu of what it's going to feel like to dive a little bit deep into something that is part of the deeper module. And so this is an excerpt. If you picture a movie trailer, we're about to do a little movie trailer of, fast forward to the technology module. One of the things that we're lucky is that we have a term that we use called the venture technologist, and it was actually coined by Chenyang. And what that means is that to future-proof, the ability for each of us to become a venture technologist is critical. We don't think everyone needs to be a technologist. We don't think everyone needs to be a venture capitalist. But we do believe that that merging is important, that we have to have an eye of entrepreneurism and a sense of the market so that we can really understand how to unleash the power and unlock the power of technology. We've conducted original research with the top 30 technologies, and it won't surprise you that at the top of the list is artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, mobile, blockchain. But what we've done is, we've worked with projects over the past 5 years. Some of you here are with us, things like a cybersecurity project in the US and China, where we work with a large automotive company on, how you actually develop a business model that takes the best of all possibilities. And then we've worked with a Japanese insurance company to figure out, what's the future of insurtech. And so by looking at the marriage of technology and business models around the globe, there's a way for everyone to accelerate the decide and commit phase of your innovation. But really, how do you master this? And so what we'd like to do now is let Chenyang Xu, who's established this term, he was quoted in the Research Technology Management article in an interview a few months back. And the concept is, so we're in this notion of what is a venture technologist? They have to be entrepreneurial, comfortable with uncertainty, adept at building strong partnerships. So Chenyang, tell us a little bit more. Give us a little preview of what that might look like within a module.
Yes. So we talked earlier many times the importance of innovation talent. We need the right one to really drive innovation. But as future proofers, we found one of the greatest paradoxes is in today's corporate is that technology and digital innovation is the key to unlock the growth, but often the project itself fell short, right? And this is, and then in the end, cannot harness the full potential at scale. Why is that? We believe it's because we have the wrong people to lead it, and so this is why, I think that this term venture technologies is so important because we have technologies who can advance technology. We have business people who can do business, but today's business is a fusion of technology and business. So we need people who lead that project and to be more like a director of an innovation movie that both have savvy about technology as well as business competence. And so that be able to lead that effectively. And so this is where I use the iceberg model. This is what you can see, from your resume, from your experience, but also there are a lot of skills needed, soft skills that are invisible, but are equally important, which is shown on the bottom, right? And so be able to deal with uncertainty and also, skilled at networking, closing deals by negotiating. And these days it's not just internal, but also external innovation. And also, be a strong storyteller who can communicate the vision, really align people, right? We talk about vision alignment was challenge. And we need these venture technologies leader that could help us to articulate a compelling vision. And so this is the key. And they will be the glue to really lead the innovation projects from the inception and convince internal stakeholders and external stakeholders to really drive innovation to scale and avoid all the translation loss, the friction in the whole innovation process. This is why it's very important. We basically believe with the future-proofing framework, we need a new breed of innovators, and venture technologies is what we believe that need to be the driver for the future innovations in the corporate. And as a venture technology, one thing we see is it not only has to focus on the technology trend, because on the venture, there's so many other driving forces affect us. In fact, the megatrends, right? And in this chart, you see a number of megatrends. And often, if let's take global trade and finance, often these could be stable for a while, or even for a long time. And look at what happened 2 years ago when US and China engaged with this greatest trade war. And that basically, lead to millions of companies' strategy in shambles. They have to restart and rethinking. And so something that you can count on suddenly change. If you don't have a plan thinking about this and be able to pivot very quickly, then you'll be in trouble. The other one is really pandemic, right? Pandemic actually came to our life out of nowhere, earlier this year. It's like a global cardiac arrest for all the companies, combined. And now we're doing these sessions, could have been in live and now on the virtual, but be able to adapt that very quickly. And, it's very important on these even megatrends. So this is why the venture technologies has to not only focus on driving the innovations, but also being constantly aware of what the bigger trends are going on and how to adjust it, accordingly. So this is why, the disruption can happen very quickly. And Andrea earlier talked about the 30 top technologies. Here I listed some of them. And we see these technologies, are the most sustaining and long-lasting megatrend that drive the society forward. And I would like to take 20 seconds just to get the pause from the audience. Pick 2 technologies from that 30 or from here that are most important for your company and drive your company's growth. Just writing in the chat so we get a sample of what are the technologies of our participants are important today. This is really interesting. If you haven't writing, please continue to write it. But the typing is very interesting. We see a lot of AI and blockchain, but 5G and you could see that these technology are really challenging our company forward, because many of the companies, particular conventional company, are still facing the challenge of digital transformation from the last decade. Now, with new digital transformation technology, AI, blockchain, 5G, IoT. And so this is really challenging. And how do we implement these and adopting this in our offering to the customers? So by taking a venture technologies view, then we can harnessing all these big technology trends. And we no longer see our innovations as advancement of technology, but more importantly, as catalysts to enable new business models and new value delivery mechanism that is bigger and bolder and better and simpler, as well as building blocks that work in tandem as a larger technology to business system, rather than a disjoint technology wonders, but commercial flaw. So just this is my last slide here. And really, I think the key thing in the future proofing, in the ability to take a zoom in view and zoom out view, and to see the world and where our business and innovation is operating, it's very important. And we see the world by 2050, next 20, 30 years, we're going to have more people coming online to the planet. We have tremendous growth of wealth, in countries like China, India, and even Africa, South America. And all these are huge business opportunities. So for companies who want to seize these big opportunity, seize the technology trends, and be able to have a future-proofing venture technology view, would be able to innovate very quickly and to really tap into these big trends and then these growth of the opportunities. So back to you.
As we close off the
Andrea.
showcase, we'll have time at the end for us to all meet each other, and we'll go on camera. But I'd like to just do one last pulse check. So we want you to picture yourself with your team starting off 2021. And usually you start with, 5-year plans and SWOT and all these things. Completely inappropriate now. So what we'd like you to do is, what's the first thing you'll do? And the question is, very briefly in the chat, where will you start? You talked earlier about what's important, but where will you start? Will you start with a meeting? Well, we hope that you'll start with us, with an immersion in our sprint, where you start Q1 and you spend some time with us, learning some new skills. But let's imagine that you want to do a future proofing session. Will you start with, what do we need to see differently? Will you gather your team together with, where do we need to start learning something? Where do we need mastery? Is it about, okay, guys, we got a lot of stuff on the table. We have to decide what are the ways that we're going to optimize our opportunities? Or are we going to start with a commitment? It's like, okay, we decided last year, life changed. Here's what's important now. Here's our North Star. We need to commit our hearts, our minds, our souls, our cultures, our people. So put down one of the words in the chat, and then I'll turn it over to Sean to round us out. And then we'd like everyone to go on camera and meet each other.
Yeah, there's 2 essential things that we want to get done in our last 10 minutes together. And then we'll have this last half hour where maybe we can get a little bit more in depth in terms of learning from you. Because certainly we've tried to condense 30 hours of a manifesto, a field guide, a playbook, and a resource bank to you in 1 hour today. So my hope is we'll have compressed it enough and still have time to actually get some advice from you. Once again, we're like a broken record. See, learn, decide, commit. And we've created 4 modules of course that are completely based on that same construct. And so as you can see here, we are essentially building a 90-day course for people where we're going to take people through 4 different modules. The first one functions as an introduction and a C. We'll take you into our future-proofing world. And of course, as I'm delivering, it's the chainsaw guy down the street. So work from anywhere has cropped up its head once again this year. But I will continue. So we'll look at future proofing. We'll take you into our world. We'll look at how to get started or reignite your efforts. And we'll also look at the function of purpose and the function of having an outside-in perspective and bringing that into your company. The second module gets into ideas. And where do ideas come from? How do you validate them? How do you expand them? And how do you measure them and de-risk them for a company that maybe a little bit reticent to actually take some new endeavors? And how do we use those to leapfrog forward to actually what we've been talking about quite a lot today, deciding and committing. And I will say, before mentioning the third and fourth modules, we recognize it's a pandemic. We all live virtually, and the training that we're planning is going to live and function both on what we've chosen and the types of form factors that we're using to be very collaborative in nature. So if you come in to us for a few hours, you're going to feel like you've actually sampled a few different types of experiences. So on our module 3, this is going to be very much how do we go about experimenting, prototyping. You know, we certainly get into Chenyang's kind of expertise in terms of venture technology, and how do we actually bring that into our midst. And we also go about, okay, how do we actually decide? How do companies decide and validate that they're making the right decisions in terms of innovation? And then the final thing, and certainly I've seen all the other courses. I wish this was a course that I had when I was a client, because on the last one, it gets into maybe the softer side of things in terms of both how do we scale and deliver these ventures, and also talking about leadership and culture. Myself and Andrea have spent a lot of time, probably more than we have in our entire careers, looking at the people, the leadership, and the culture side of things, and where innovation goes wrong. And hopefully at the end of this, it'll be a springboard for moving ahead. Here's what it looks like. We planned it in 4 modules starting February 26th. And essentially there will be an interactive class, a video reinforcement between classes, and a coaching peer support session that follows after. And so come June, whoever takes our course, they will become fully minted future proofers and hopefully ready to take on the world. So we've got a lot of different things in here. As I mentioned, I will not take a backseat to any other innovation course that I've seen out there. We are applying a lot of different assets that we think are great and are for practitioners. And so there's also 12 different ways to get involved even beyond the course. I'm not going to get into any of these here, but recognize that beyond the book and the training, there's a complete heft of other things that, you know, along the way, potentially people that get involved or people on the call today couldn't get involved in terms of our movement. So February 26th, it begins. This is real, it's happening. Executive innovation for practitioners. And I think before we open it up to an open mic, I think we just want to have a quick poll set up in terms of, if you've heard from us, now it's about time we hear from you. And we'd love your thoughts in terms of what's intrigued you most about today's showcase. And we'll ask you to take a poll. This is almost always like election night, where it's just like, which one is going to pop? Notice how none of the choices are well choreographed yellow background. As much as it looks simple, there's so much going on behind the scenes in terms of pulling this off for today. Wow, we're getting a smattering of everything here, Chenyang and Andrea. I'll spend maybe 5 more seconds popping this up as a poll. Oh, wow. It just begun to tie itself in the last minute. I thought I was going to come out with some level of equivocality, but it seems like if we want to close the poll, Andrew, it seems like see, learn, decide, commit as a model is something that people viewed as being, you know, high value in terms of what's being offered here. And the idea that we're going after practitioners as opposed to some type of academic or much more of a scholarly type of approach. And maybe if we look at the bronze medal, its potential for strategic impact and delivery for better innovation. So really, really good. I want to thank you for providing us your insights. My hope is as well, just I know we're all managed by our Google calendars and we got 4 minutes before the hour. We're going to open this up to open mic, but if you could lend a thought to us in terms of some of your commitment to maybe, I know we're kind of friends and family in this world. My hope is, you know, there's some level of commitment to either be an advocate, a referrer, or perhaps even taking our course or advocating for somebody inside your company or your network. But also if you could, just even if it's a few words, if you could, if there's enough traction that we've created today, just write a few words in terms of a testimonial and let us know if we can attribute it, because we're trying to build the coalition of the willing here.
What I'd like to do now is quote John Legend. We had some music at the beginning. We're not going to sing the John Legend song, but love the fact that we say, we love to quote ourselves, catch up, don't give up. You know, it's really easy to give up. It's an overwhelming time. And to quote John Legend, oh, by the way, everybody turn your camera on while I'm doing this, please, because we're about to go on open mic. So figure out how to put your camera on and let yourself be seen. And the future started yesterday and we're already late. So we'd like everyone to now come on board and hopefully we can see everybody.